Today we are going to talk about Azure Bicep, and my name is Tushar Kumar, and basically I'm a cloud solution architect and MVP as well for a specific cloud, not exactly for Microsoft. And also I work extensively on DevOps, BI solutions, as well as infrastructure solutions. So basically, my profile is more towards how we are going to plan out the deployments, how we are going to set up the overall DevOps pipelines around that, and how you can leverage the Azure services more efficiently. That's what actually I do in my day-to-day job. Okay, so if I get into it, let me just get directly into the IAC. And for those who like know me, like personally, I can say I have done a recent move, and due to that it's like there was a huge time zone confusion that happened, and it's like I'm sitting here 6 a.m. in the morning and then delivering, so please excuse me if there is any technical glitches that we see. Okay, so yeah, so jumping right into the meat of the overall session. So infrastructure as a code on Azure first thing. So infrastructure as a code is not a new concept. Neither we have been seeing it a lot from a lot of other areas as well, right? We have seen PowerShell, we have seen Azure ARM template, we have seen Terraform. There was a lot of other components that we had earlier as well that we used to use around a lot of things, and also we are using at this point of time. So it's like everything that you're having at this point of time that you're going and deploying through the portal, we are doing it through the code. And the benefit that we are getting out of it is more of a reusability. We are getting our streamlined pipelines created, wherein we have a full deployment streamlined, and all the deployments that are repetitive, we can definitely have reuse the particular code for that particular purpose as well. So we had multiple options, right? So we had multiple options around, maybe we have Azure ARM templates at this point of time, we have Bicep at this point of time, we have Azure CLI, we have PowerShell, we have SDKs as well available that you can integrate in your code directly, and you can deploy the resources through the Azure SDKs. We have Terraform and Ansible for our deployments and desired state configurations as well. We have Chef and Puppet for all the configuration managements as well. So all of these app options we had in past as well. But we mostly focused on ARM templates, starting with specifically for those who are more inclined towards Azure side, right? So the ARM templates was the first class citizen actually. So basically the bit when we say first class citizen, right? It is a first party offering directly from Microsoft. So whenever you are getting into Azure, it is integrated with each and every components that we are interacting with in Azure. We had the desired state deployment capabilities around it. So whatever the desired state that we want to, we can definitely take that out with the help of Azure ARM template. It's kind of idempotent at this point of time. So any kind of deployments that we are having it is intelligent enough to look into that what exactly is there and what exactly is not there. That kind of deployments, the deployment times is, it is quite faster than what we used to do with our portal experience, right? So you have a template created already. You just need to change a few parameters, or maybe you just need to pass on for a few parameters that is important, that you want, that is not like varying from your organizational parameters, right? And you can deploy it pretty quickly. Or maybe you can have pipeline created with your Azure DevOps, or maybe directly with the GitHub workflows. And what will happen is it will automatically deploy whenever we are doing a commit specifically to the master branch, or maybe any of your staging branches. It was quite modular. Not that modular that it was, but it was quite modular. You can create a simple, basically, you can create multiple JSON files, and you can call out into your particular uh, main script as well. So, and as I talked about, right, CI/CD integration was one of the key concepts over here. So ARM was more used into the when we were talking about more of a CI/CD concepts. It was quite extensible as well. Like we can integrate a lot of DSCs into it. You can put in PowerShell DSC over there. You had a lot of options to integrate others as well, where you can configure your resources in such a manner that you want specifically. Okay. And the last thing is more of a tracked deployment. So all the deployments was well tracked. We had a full trace of what exactly is getting deployed and how exactly it is getting deployed. You can see the overall trace logs for the particular deployment that you are doing with ARM. So this was basically uh, more of a benefits around ARM. So we were quite happy. Okay, we were happy with the way template was happening. We were creating the ARM templates, and we have been creating ARM templates from a long time so far. But what happened with ARM specifically? Okay, what all we see as a challenge with ARM. So first thing is JSON. So if I talk about JSON, right? JSON back in when JSON was created, right? It was created specifically for machines to talk to each other. It was not basically for humans to interact, right? So whenever, let's say, a web server is sending a call to the backend middleware, then it is sending a JSON request out of it, and then machines are understanding that particular language, and then it is sending back the whatsoever response is there. So it was not at all human friendly, I'll say. So it was quite hard to read. We had a lot of issues. Doing a verbose is kind of a pain in ARM templates specifically, and nested and linked templates, right? So I said when I was talking about ARM being a modular one, right? So see, definitely ARM was pretty much modular, but the thing is, when you get into a nested templates and linked templates into it, right, it's a nightmare. It gets into a total nightmare. Like, let's say if you mess up one thing, it is very hard to trace back where exactly you messed up anything around that. So that was actually the complexity that we were seeing uh, within the ARM template specifically. Okay. Now, what we did specifically, right? So I believe on 1.5 year back, right, Microsoft started a project called Project Bicep, and within that, the overall objective of that project was to make this particular challenges that the people are seeing, right, to overcome those challenges specifically, and to make deployment through IAC a bit easier than what it is at this point of time. So they basically built out a Bicep language. So Bicep language is nothing but it is sitting on top of your ARM templates at this point of time. Okay. So whoever is thinking that ARM templates are like now they do not need to use ARM template, or ARM templates are totally like going in trash now. But no, it's not like that. So Bicep is sitting at this point on top of your ARM templates basically. So the way the overall flow works, right, let me just put across the full presentation over here. So the way it works specifically, that we have a Bicep language, we have a Bicep file, let's say. Okay, so whenever we do the Bicep build over here, okay, so this was a pretty much old concept at this point of time, but it works the same way at this point of time as well, but it is quite extensive now, so you do not need to go through the full cycle. So whenever you do a Bicep build specifically, what is happening is it is converting it into an ARM template over here. Okay, so it's kind of a conversion that is happening in the backend for that particular Bicep template that you have created. And once that is created, right, there will be Azure deployment create. We used to do it for Azure ARM templates as well, right? So we do a deployment create. So once you create a deployment, right, it will interact with the Azure ARM module, and the benefit that we are getting out of it, right? So there might be some people in the audience, they might think, okay, so we whatever we talked about the benefits of Bicep, right, the same kind of language we had as Terraform, right? Why we need to go for a specific language like Bicep? Okay, so Terraform is great. Okay, I'll not say Terraform is not that great. Terraforms, whenever you are looking at maybe you are having a hybrid kind of environments and you want to go ahead with Terraform, that is the best option for you at that point of time. But when you are specifically talking about Azure, right, and I'll say when adopt Bicep only when Azure is the main focus for you. Okay. And when we are talking about Bicep specifically, the reason why Bicep is better for Azure in terms of than basically Terraform is all the Bicep templates, right? And all the Bicep, I'll say the resources that is availability and the specific versions of that, right? It is available at this point of time. It is tightly integrated with the platform over here because it is totally directly integrated talking to the Azure Resource Manager over here. Okay, so what is the benefit that you are getting out of this is you have all the resources that is either in GA, either in public preview, or in private preview. You are getting direct access to those. So it is any which way. It is a conditional. If you are part of the private preview, then definitely you can deploy that particular resource using your Bicep template. Even if there is anything that is in public preview at this point of time, you can deploy that using Bicep because it is totally integrated with ARM over here. And all the services, because what I have seen, right, and if we are seeing the new services coming out, and maybe if it is in public preview, it's hard to find that particular module in Terraform there. But with Bicep, you will be able to deploy it on the day one itself without any issues or without seeing any kind of like not available modules over there. Okay. So basically, what is Bicep specifically? It's a domain-specific language, so we call it a domain-specific language. So as the name suggests, right? So don't get confused when a lot of people, even I talk a lot about. Okay, so Bicep is a kind of DSL that you do. So it's nothing but a domain-specific language. So you're specifically designed for Azure at this point of time. It is giving you a simplified authoring experience so that you can write your templates quite easily, and you can like interact with your Azure resources without going through the JSON mechanism that we have, without using that machine language that we used to use. And all the abstraction, it's kind of transparent abstraction that we are getting. And also the benefit that we are getting is it is highly tightly integrated with all the platforms that we are pretty much comfortable with, being it from your VS Code, being it from your Azure platform, and being it from your AZ modules and the modules that we had earlier. Okay, just to give a glimpse, right? So I was quite say I was like, okay, see, JSON is complicated. So see, there is a quick example around that. If we just have to write something around with our JSON file, right? It is this difficult. It's like 10 lines of code that you need to put. It's like having a C++ and having a Python kind of scenario that we are looking at, right? So this is just for a glimpse of that. So you can see the similar code just to write a single line, you are having this much of complexity what you are having in spite of that, just to define one parameter and one variable out of it. Okay, so the reason why it is going to be you will be using Bicep, right? I'm just putting it across because as a mandate for everyone, because the thing is Bicep is the future for Azure resources. So ARM will be there, but Bicep, all the new templates, even if you see all the Microsoft websites, and if you're seeing any new kind of deployments, it is coming out in Bicep as well as JSON. They have the JSON there as well, but what I am hoping that in near future it will start fading away, so we'll just see the Bicep templates over there only. Okay, so the reason why we are going to use the Bicep going forward is, first thing, we all know that it's like very intuitive, and you can get started pretty easily with basically Bicep. And there is a term called without JSON noise, right? So what we call as a JSON noise specifically. So if I go back one slide, right? So you can see there is a lot of curly braces, there is a lot of quotes, there is a lot of colons out here that you can see out here, and this is what basically what the tech industries keep on calling as a noise. So basically, we have a lot of noise in there. We have a lot of uh, I'll say extra components over there that is not needed when we are doing a deployment. So it is easy, and we do not need all those noise in our particular code when we are doing that when we are doing that deployment. It is quite modular, so you can create multiple modules, and you can create based on your different scopes, right? You can create a different scripts, and you can integrate them together so that any point of time, let's say you're facing a challenge with your storage account, or maybe you're facing a challenge with your particular any specific components, right? You can directly go there and like basically work on that particular thing only, instead of working throughout. You need to check all your JSON code first. Okay, so as I mentioned, right, it's a extension to your arm, so it's not a replacement. So it's like you cannot say I have built biceps, so I have replaced my arm. It's like you just added something on top of it. You just added some muscles on top of your arm. Okay, and the best thing is, as I mentioned earlier as well, that it is integrated with your existing tooling. So the best thing that I find that I see about a bicep is, right, it's just control plus space, and everything that you need, right, you will be seeing with the IntelliSense. So these guys have done a tremendous work out there. So whenever we are authoring, we'll see that in a couple of minutes as well. So whenever we are getting into any of the bicep concepts, if we just need to put a control plus space in your VS Code, and you'll see the IntelliSense kicking in, and it will show you how do you need to author the next step, or what all parameters are required for this kind of resource. So those kind of help that you are getting while writing that particular code. Okay, now the next question comes in: do I need to start build everything, rebuilding everything, to be honest? So the best thing is ARM is going to be here for a long time now. You don't need to worry at this point of time. So Bicep is not replacing ARM, it is just extending it at this point of time. Bicep is still in quite early stages at this point of time. It is getting adopted by a lot of organizations. Even so far, I have only done one enterprise scale deployment with the Bicep, and it's like we are in very early stages. There is a lot of things. There is a lot of like pull requests are also going on into the particular repository that we have. And so where exactly we should be using Bicep? So my recommendation will be to use Bicep into all the new projects that is landing into. So all the new projects, you can look at what exactly you can do with Bicep. It will be a good but like start for you as well, in terms of doing a hands-on on Bicep and finding all the resources that I will be showing as well, that where exactly you can find the reference to the resources, because 1.5 hour, right, we cannot cover the 100% of Bicep, and I cannot make you a pro of authoring a particular bicep template, because at any point of time you will be creating a virtual network, and you will be needing some sort of help around that. Okay, then I have created the virtual network, I know this from the tutorial that I had, but the thing is, I need to add basically tag on top of it, or maybe I need to add another CIDR range in that virtual network, or maybe you have to attach it nick into it. So how am I going to do that? So you need to look at the right resources around that, so that you can grab that particular code, or maybe you can take the reference from there and write on your own. So all the new projects, please do try Azure Bicep out there. And all the and all the templates that we are having at this point of time, right? You can maybe that's up to you, but you can move those templates to directly to Bicep. There is a quite a lot converter available at this point of time. I'll show you a couple of things in the coming minutes as well, where you can change and you can migrate from ARM to Bicep, and you will be able to like convert your existing templates that you are having to Bicep templates. Okay, so I'll say let's do some sets out here. So basically, we will be seeing a couple of things in a minute. So to be very honest, I'm a huge fan of basically as Microsoft documentation, right? So I will be giving a lot of references around it. I will be giving a lot of I'll be giving a lot of links around it. So please don't mind that. Please follow those links. Microsoft documentations are great. I'll be walking you through each and every documentation that I'm sharing, and it's not that like I am going to put it on you, and you need to follow it on your own. So please excuse me for that. Okay. Okay. So let me share my full screen. So we have a question from okay, Chaitanya. So are there any extensions to Bicep? I don't think so at this point of time. If you mean like we are extending it, we are extending it to something. I'll not say, but because I'm not a Microsoft guy, to be very honest over here, it's so I cannot say at this point of time. But I don't think so. There will be any extensions to the Bicep. Okay. Okay. Let me reshare my screen, my full screen. Okay, so I have a couple of things out here, so don't get scared. So first thing first, let me start with. So there is an awesome website. If you go to Google and search for Bicep Playground. Okay, so this is a Microsoft official one. You just have to Google for Bicep Playground, and what you'll see is that there is a aka.ms/bicep demo website that you will be seeing. Okay, when you get into this, right, you will get a glimpse of what all Bicep can do. Okay, so this site sometimes takes a little bit of time, but when you open the Bicep Playground, right? So I'll just give you a quick brief around it. Okay, so what it gives you is whatever the existing templates that we have. So we all must have seen one thing that was Azure ARM template reference templates. There is a GitHub link that you will be seeing. If you Google it, so you'll get all the sample templates in for Azure ARM templates in GitHub. There is a specific repository out there. So what they have done, right? So for all those templates that we had there, they have given us a good comparison, and I'll say a conversion as well. So you'll see over here. So like either starting from maybe a web app Linux or maybe a web app on Windows, you will be seeing the conversion of that particular ARM template into Bicep template over here. Okay, so in that case, if you can see, just this is a particular template in Azure Arm, which is creating a web server specifically, and it is also configuring what exactly it is configuring. I'm also not I'm also seeing it for the first time. Okay, so we are considering we are creating an app service plan, we are creating an app service, and we are then publishing it. Okay, so that's what it is doing, and it is basically based on a Linux one. So we have in app service we have two options. One is you can create it with the Windows, and one is you can create with Linux. So this one is creating with Linux with the specific Linux version PHP 7 Linux and PHP version 7.4. So similarly, we have a lot of options over here, right? So we have a lot of scripts that we had earlier as well. So let's start with the very simple one. Okay, so we need to put a hello world in Azure. Okay, so let me just see. Okay. Yeah. So actually, I believe someone just asked a question. I believe it's Chaitanya because I see only C over here. So basically, that the difference that I'm showing over here, right? So this is basically the difference. So on the right hand side, what you are seeing, right? It is basically an ARM template that we have. Okay. So to like specifically author an ARM template, you have to deploy, you have to actually write down all these lines over here. Like you have to define, first start with your schema type, you have to put the metadata around it, you have to put all the parameters in terms of your JSON. So just let's take an example of this. Okay, so in your ARM templates you have to deploy one parameter. Okay, so in terms of deploying a parameter you need to put all these. Okay, so this is your parameter, this is your uh, this is your name of your parameter, this is your type of your parameter. Okay, but when we are getting into specifically when we are getting into Bicep, what we are doing is we are defining a parameter like this. Okay, so all of these noise, right? So when we are so this noise that we are having. So remember I talked about a bit of noise that we are having in our JSON template. So we have removed this. We have made it param. We have made it your name. We have removed this, all these curly braces, the quotes, and all those things. And string. So after removing all those, we have created one parameter for our bicep template. Okay. So this is how you actually do. This is how the difference you will see even in getting into the larger deployment specifically, right? You will see a lot of difference. Let me just quickly open another sample over here, right? Maybe I can say AKS VM scale set. Okay, so just see the line of code. Okay, 137 out here, 92, 91 out here. Okay, and also the cleanness of this particular code, what you will see, right? It is pretty much human readable. Like you will see even if without the descriptions out here, right? So you'll see there is a parameter that is string type with which is set to C101. There is a location that you are picking up from resource group to location. There is the same kind of all the variables are defined out here, and you are defining all the tags out here, which we are going to use in future out. And also then we are creating a virtual network which is a resource VM, and we are defining the resource network type. So basically it's a network. When we are it's a Microsoft.network. You must be familiar if you have deployed any time of Azure ARM templates, right? You must be aware of this one, that you have to define the resource type with that particular API version out there, or maybe so see similarly here, right? So we have the resource type out here, we have the API version, okay, and we have the parameters defined out here. So but all of these, right? So let's take an example. There must be some concatenate out here, right? So all of those, right, who has used at some point of time, maybe I'll say if you have used, maybe I'll say C++, okay. C++, you have used C++, and at some point of time you used, when we were all in our college times and we used to print something, and in C++ you have to do all the iostream.h and all those things, and then you have to put your single line of code out there, okay, and then it prints just the hello world. The same thing happened with this as well in JSON, and we came up with then Python. Sorry, I forgot that point. So we came up with Python, and there we just used to write print hello world, and it's done. You do not need to include much of your libraries, and that you do not have much of a dependency around all those noise that we need to put in. So just we are removing the complexity out here. We are making this particular authoring experience for basically IAC developers specifically, that okay, these whatever things that you are defining out here, it is much easier when you are defining like this over here. And also when you are giving this is not a reference one, but in reference templates you have to give a reference to another template, and with that template also you have to look at the overall integrity of that. But in Bicep, if I'll show that in coming minutes as well, when we start writing a particular code. So when you reference a module, right? So while we are calling the module out, and if there is any issues in that particular module, there is an intelligent module out there that will show you that okay, this is something, that module that you're trying to call, this has some errors around it, and you should not include that, or you can fix that first and then include that. So that level of details you are going to get out of it. So I believe this is quite clear for you all. One quick thing that I want to show, which is more of a decompilation. Yes, you do actually. So I believe this is answer for Chaitanya's question. I believe everyone can see my Teams chat as well. Just give a shout out, because I am not reading the questions that Chaitanya is posting so far.
Okay, so the question was, can we query Azure using Bicep? The last question.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned specifically. So yes, you can. So you have an option, you can query Azure using Azure Bicep. So that's what actually. I believe my chat is also visible to everyone because I've shared my full screen. If it is not, I'll read out the questions as well before answering. Okay, so this is what I was actually talking about. So as a quick start templates, right? You must have seen this particular library at some point of time if you are an IAC developer, right? So all the infrastructure as a code guys, you must have seen this. You must have copied something out from here. I have done a lot. I'll not say that I write my own code, right? I also copy paste from a lot of places. And so in that case, right, I'll just go to demos over here. Okay, so you have tons of demo out here, right? So let's say you have DNS forwarder, you have Docker, you have all those things, right? So just let me pick one from here, Azure deploy.json. Okay, so this is what we have as a code. Okay, and don't worry, I'm not trying to skip through anything. So this is a huge code we are looking at. Okay, uh, I picked the wrong one, it seems like, but still, let's give it a try. Okay, so when you go here, it's just a Bicep Playground thing that I'm talking about over here, but there is an option in your CLI as well to do the same as well. But let me just okay. So let me just create one JSON file out here. I just so what I'm doing, right? So basically you have an option to decompile a JSON into Bicep. Okay, so I was talking about like movement from JSON to Bicep as well, right? So what you need to do is you need to create uh, do, 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 do. You have one, let's say, so I'm just creating one JSON file. I just copied it from the repository we all used to copy codes from. And I'm just creating a file within my desktop. So this is the test.json. So this is my ARM template, okay? So this is going to be my ARM template. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to upload this into Bicep Playground. Okay. Let's see if it works or not. If demo for Tesla can fail, right? It can fail for me as well. Okay. So I believe we are seeing some change over here. There is a compilation failed that happened. I'm not sure what exactly was the reason, but still you can see we used a template from here. Okay. Let me just open that. Okay. So we had a template for those guys who know ARM templates, right? They will actually be able to understand this. So see, you have a Windows VM size where you are creating this Windows VM size. You are putting that value for the SKU. You are just giving it a description around it. Similarly, right? Even though it failed, right? You have all those parameters defined over here. Okay, so whatever the description that you had in your Windows VM size over here, I believe everyone can see my screen. Let me just zoom in a bit. So it says the compilation failed. There must be some modules that got failed over there, but still it did a bit of a job over there. So I'm just showing that maybe uh, we need to actually look at that what exactly failed over there. So basically you have the Windows size of Windows VM, and it is like Windows VM size defined as a standard D4 V3. So basically this got converted into a Bicep code. It doesn't matter that you are using ARM template at this point of time. If you want to convert that into Bicep code, you can do that. And the migration process as well, I will show that. And the reason why we are saying there is a 4-step process for the migration. This is the exact reason why we are saying there is a 4-step migration process, because we are when we are talking about migration from ARM to Bicep, right? It is a basically AI based conversion that is happening, right? So we cannot trust it 100% at this point of time. It is just going to do your work 95%. Then again, you have to look at it from 5% from your side, understanding the code, and as well as fixing if there is anything that is doing a funny behavior, and then we can definitely go ahead from that. So this is one of a feature that you get out of it. Now what I'll do is I'll jump directly into basically Microsoft Docs. Okay, so there are a couple of things that you need to look into. Okay, so when we are talking about, I believe everyone can see my screen, so I'll just, if you're not, just give me a shout out, otherwise that's fine. Okay, so if you go into this part, right, I'll just put a link. Okay, so we'll start from here. Okay, we'll start from here. We'll look at a couple of concepts and then we'll get into deployment of it. So I'm just putting this link on the chat so that everyone can follow as well. Okay, so basically we are talking about resource. So basically we are talking about writing a Bicep template. Okay, so Microsoft has given some guidance around it, that how the structure should be and how the document, how whenever you're creating a template, right, how it should be, right? So we are not getting into much of a complexity of it, but still the basic building blocks, right? When we are getting into a deployment, okay, first thing that we get into is resources. Okay, so what all resources that you need to deploy? Okay, so you must have seen in my demos in the earlier Bicep Playground demos, right, that there is always a resource that is getting deployed with resource. So let's say you are deploying a storage account, anything, you are deploying an NSG, you are deploying a ASG, you are deploying a storage account, a virtual machine, it will start with a resource. Okay, so you are defining a resource, and that is going to be followed by a symbolic name. So that is just going to be the name of that particular deployment. Okay, it has nothing to do with your maybe let's say it has nothing to do with your storage account names or for whatever is going to be your SaaS token around that or anything around that. Okay, it is just a deployment name, so that okay, in coming, let's say in the coming deployments, if you have to reference that previous deployment, you have a name of that deployment that you can reference to. Okay, then comes the resource provider type. So this is a full type of the resource provider, what we have seen here. Let me just quickly open up anything that I have. Okay, so here, see, so if you're deploying a public IP, so that is a Microsoft.network and public IP. So it is a part of network resource provider, and there are subcategory that is public IP address, and you are providing the API version. Okay, so that API version you are going to get from here. Okay, and then comes the resource properties. So best thing around Bicep is, right. So let me just quickly open up. So I was saying that it is tightly integrated with IntelliSense. Okay, so let me just create. Let me just give it a name. Okay, here you go. Demo.bicep. Okay. So let me remove everything, okay, from here. It will be just one thing. So what I did is I created one Bicep file. Okay, I picked the resource type that I'm deploying a resource. That resource name is going to be public IP. Okay, that is PIP. Then comes what is the type of that. Then comes what is going to be the what is the API version for that particular one. Okay, if I go in the curly braces of that and hit Control plus space, right, it is going to give me all the tags, all the components that that is required over here. So you can see name is required, depends on that is not required, so no, there is no required over here. Extended location, everything you are going to get out of it. Okay, so you can create a public IP without. So right here you have only one dependency, that is name. So you can just click on that, you'll get what exactly you'll get the a specific parameter out there, and then you can give it a name, maybe something like whatever. I'm not going to deploy this one. Okay, so just giving it a some name. And similarly, then let's say you want to tag your public IP, right? So you'll just press Control plus space in your Visual Studio Code, and you will be able to see all those things, like being it from tag, being it from SKU, being it from zones, and what is the location. So all of these you will be able to see that with just your Control plus space. So that is basically IntelliSense picking up from this particular API that we are having over here, right? So it is picking what exactly is the required and what all specific parameters that will be passed on into this kind of resource. So how this is happening actually? So our Visual Studio Code was not that intelligent when you downloaded it. Okay, so what we did is we went into our extensions over here. We just okay, it's available here as well. I am just because I have installed it. You just have to search for Bicep. You'll find this Bicep language extension, and guys have done great job out here. You'll find you'll find a Bicep extension. You just need to install it. Okay, once you have installed it, it is fair and it is well and good. Now anything that you are saving with the with .bicep extension, IntelliSense will be kicking onto that. Okay, so that was a quick demo on this IntelliSense piece. So let's get back to our declaration piece. Okay, so any kind of declaration that you are doing, you just need to put a name, a symbolic name for that particular one. You just need to put the resource type for that, and you will be able to see all the properties with the help of your Control plus space, and IntelliSense will show you the properties. And if you do not know the properties, I'll show where exactly you can get that. Even if you are writing it on a plain notepad, right, you will be able to find that on Microsoft websites itself. So that was a basically quick example around that. Then comes the conditional deployment. So we have a couple of conditional deployments as well. So there is a lot of scenarios, right, where we want to create a particular template, okay, which is having a lot of things, but we do not want to deploy all those things every time, maybe. Okay, like taken in, and you must have heard of enterprise scale landing zone. Okay, so enterprise scale landing zone, when we talk about it, consists of, I'll say, all the suns and moons into it. It's like it is having all the good things that is available within Azure. You are putting all the security, you are putting all the network best practices, you are putting all the best segregation that you can do. But that is not a best fit for every customer that you are getting in. And even in your organization, if a new application is landing in, right, you do not need to have all those components out there. So in that case, what we do is we have to create a conditional deployment, okay, right, so that we can either define it within our parameters, or either we can define it in our variables at the very beginning, that okay, we will be passing on these all, and if that is true only, or if that is if we have that flag into it, then only that particular deployment happens. Okay, so similarly, we have the deployment. So we all have seen at some point of time if else condition kind of thing. So you can put a if into it. So let's say we are deploying a DNS zone. We can put a if DNS zone over here. We are taking a parameter that is a Boolean type. So Boolean type will be either true or false. So if the deployment zone comes as true, then this deployment will carry forward. Otherwise, it will skip, the template will skip that particular deployment. That's a fairly simple one. If we go ahead and if we are putting it something like in terms of runtime functions, right? Let's say I showed an example of public IP, right? So let's say public IP, we have two options. We have either we can go with the dynamic public IP, or we can go with static public IP as well. So when we are going ahead with dynamic public IP or static public IP, that decision will happen based on the workload itself, right? So the deployment script should be flexible enough so that whenever we are getting into it, we can provide, okay, we want a dynamic, we want a non-dynamic, maybe static one. So in that case, the way it is going to be, right, you can put a inline conditions over here. Just get what is, if let's say here, if the log analytics is not empty, you are going to put this condition. If it is empty, you are going to put another condition. Okay, so just a quick example of it. If I go here. Okay, so see, here we are taking a parameter that is called dynamic allocation. Okay, dynamic allocation, we are saying it is basically a Boolean type. Okay, I've just created a variable out here, and what we are doing is we are checking if dynamic allocation, if this is true, because we are taking a Boolean type over here, we can check on the other conditions as well. But if this one is true, we are going to put the dynamic. If this one is false, we are going to put the static. Okay, just to save some time, I have done a run for this one as well. So if you see, let me just quickly put this like this. So if you see the output of this, right? So it first thing it asked me provide the Boolean value type. So I said, okay, this is true. So when we said true, everything got succeeded, and it is like where is the value? Let me just rerun it. Okay, I did a what if deployment over here. I'll talk about it. I'll talk about the what if deployment as well. So basically what it is going to do, right, it is going to give the output as a hello world. Output for this hello world is, it is dynamic, or maybe it is non-dynamic. Okay, so that's what you are going to get out of it. Maybe I should put my specs on. That will help. Okay, so this was basically out of conditions that we are talking about. Now let me go back here. Okay, So this is one thing. Next comes is child resources. We'll definitely see all these in next 15 minutes. We'll just quickly walk through all of these and what all exactly, because understanding everything is first thing, and then you can definitely get into either if you are going to copy paste some code, then you will be having a full clarity. Okay, what exactly this is doing. So getting into it, talking about the child resources specifically. So we have a lot of components in Azure, right? Like let's say you are creating a virtual network. So there is going to be a child resources as the subnet. If you are creating a storage account, you will be having a child resource as I'll say your file shares, your blob containers, and all those are going to be of child resources that you can define. So basically the way it is going to be, you can put your child resources inside your parent resources simply. So just getting into an example, right? So you just have to, like, let's say you have a resource type. There is a good example out here, right? So there is a good example out here that you're creating a storage account, and the storage account seems to be like Microsoft.storage, and you're putting this API version and you're defining it. Now, inside that particular storage account, so see the curly braces has not been closed out here for this one. This is just for SKU. You are calling another resource and giving it a name. And as part of this calling out the service type, right? What you are doing is you are just calling file services. So the way it is looking at this overall, right? It is looking at something like this. Okay, so this will basically, so internally the way it is going to be, the way it is looking is something like this. Okay, so we are calling out, we are not calling out the full over here, that it is inside Microsoft storage accounts and then file services. It is calling out, we are calling out directly file services. That is giving us ability to call out that file services instead of going through the pain of writing all those Microsoft storage slash storage account 2021 and then to that one. So all of these is ruled out over here. So this is how basically we call out a child resource over here. Okay, there is extension resources as well. So any kind of deployment, let's say we are doing and we want to like extend it at going for going forward as well, right? So there is a resource group and you want to put a resource lock on top of it that you haven't defined on the basically on the first part itself. Then you will be taking out, then you will be using that extension resources over here. Parameters we are well aware of, we'll not get into it. So it's the same thing that we used to do in our ARM days. It's just the parameters is going to be the parameters are going to be defined differently. And there are certain changes that happened. So simply, like, let's say earlier we used to do a concat in ARM days, right? So any parameter that we want to put it, we used to put concat. We used to put a lot of things out there, and then we put then we are adding, let's say we have a subnet name over there, and then dash, and then subnet kind of things. Okay, but here you do not need to do anything. You have a defined site name, maybe above somewhere, or maybe you are taking it as another parameter, right? So the way it is going to work is it is picking the site name. This one is just you are defining the site name dash plan. So the output, let's say my site name is going to be Tushar. In that case, the way it will look like in the parameter is Tushar dash plan. So earlier we used to write concat, then I believe there was a lot of components. Then you used to write your variable name and all those things, and then only you will be able to do that. But that is now simplified with Bicep, and now you can do it at any point of time with this just putting a dollar sign and putting it into curly braces. You will be able to simply define that variable and concatenate that as well. Okay, same Variables, that is not a new concept. You just anything that is that you want to put it as a hard coded into your environment, you can put a variable out there, and you can put that. Outputs is one of the key concepts over here. So any of the script that we are writing over here, right? Or maybe we are writing a module out there. So what the way it is going to work, what exactly you want as an outcome of that particular module, or what exactly you want as a outcome of the overall script that you are writing. So that exactly you are going to get out of your outputs. Okay, so like let's say we are creating a public IP, right? So the output will be output is defined over here, right? What we are saying is the host name, which is we are looking into public IP, the properties of that, the DNS setting, and what is the FQDN for that. Okay. Now comes the interesting part, which is modules. I'll talk about modules in a while, because we'll see it in the demo directly. And loops, we are well aware of loops in our programming days. So anything like let's say we have a repetitive deployment, or maybe just take a quick example of a virtual machine we need to create, right? And we want to create 5 virtual machines, and we do not want to repetitively write that code. So what we want a script that creates 5 virtual machines every time when we are talking about when we are deploying that. Okay, or maybe taking an input, okay, how many virtual machine of same time you'll be needing, like 10 virtual machine, 15 as a parameter, and then works on that. Okay, so that kind of deployment we can do simply, if you can see over here, right? So the way it is going, it is taking a parameter that is integer type. We are taking an integer that is saying 5, and we can simply do that a string of array that uh, we are taking for I, which is range in this, and every time we are doing this item I plus 1. So that is like we are getting item 1, item 2, item 3, item 4. So it is like the same way we do it in Python. If you have ever worked in Python, right? It's quite simple. You can just look into it. So it is like r- ranging from 0 to 5. Okay, because our item count is 5 over here, it will keep on going. So it will keep on putting the details like 5. So we have created one array, we have created one loop inside that, and it is going to put all the details around it 1 to 5. Similarly, for the resources as well, as you see here, for the resources, you need to define after the equal to sign that you are putting it, you need to define that, and you can put a colon out there, and you can put the whole code out there. So let's say if let's assume this is our VM code, or maybe let's assume this is our storage account. Yeah, this is the storage account code, right? So you are taking it out from here, and you are creating, let's say 5. If you are putting storage account 5, you are creating 5 storage account with different names, just based on that I. So you can see the concatenation we have done over here. So every time we are creating a storage account, it is having a number associated with it. Okay. Here comes one of the interesting concepts, and a lot of people get confused into it, which is scopes. Okay. So what we have in Bicep, right? We have a multiple scopes available. Okay. So basis what exactly a scope means, first we need to understand. Okay. So basically, scope is where exactly you want to run that code onto. Okay. So the thing that starts with that, let's say you want to deploy it on a resource group. Okay, which is going to be so all those resources will be residing in a resource group. Or if whatever that you are having in your code, right, it is basically targeting your subscription. Maybe you are creating resource groups, you are creating a subscription level, something like policies. All those things will be targeted to a subscription. All the parameters that you need to put on a management group, you need to set the scope to management group, which will be more around maybe you're on the management group. We put a lot of things, right? We put our policies, we put our blueprints, all those things you will be defining on top of your management groups. And there can be something that you have to do, or you have to work on your tenant wise. So maybe you have to create a service principal in your tenant, or maybe you have to create something related to your tenant, like you are working with some users and all. So that all you have to scope it to tenant. Okay. So basically, it is totally dependent on. Where exactly you are deploying. So based on that, you will be putting the scope, and based on that, the deployment command will also change over here. So whatever you are deploying and wherever you are deploying it, accordingly you will be putting the scope. If you are deploying it on a resource group, you will be putting it scope as a resource group. If you're deploying it on a subscription, you will be putting as a subscription. If you are deploying it on a management group, you'll be putting it a management group. So likewise for the tenant. Okay. And linter, we have seen some part of this linter, but I'll be showing that as well. So basically linter is something that guides you through with the best practices, as well as checking your code in terms of how your uh, code is defined at this point of time. Like if your code have any hard coded passwords, or if your code is having any hard coded URLs that you should not be using into it. So all of those, the linter is going to give you a full view around it. So if I just quickly, let me just try that. Okay. So I have the script at this point with me. Okay, let me just try to do something. Okay, so there is an admin username. Okay, let me define one other uh, parameter out here, which is going to be admin username too. Okay, so one of the best practices that says if a parameter is getting uh, declared, right, it should be used somewhere as well. Okay, now on the back bottom here, right, there is a quick thing that you can see. There is a problems tab that is popping up with two problems. Okay, so now let's see what exactly is this. So this is our basically this is what we say as I'll say linter. Okay, so the declaration type is not recognized. Okay, so whatever we have deployed here, declared, is it is not recognized. And what it is saying is admin username 2 is declared, but okay, this is for the demo one. That's what I was thinking. What happened to this one? Okay, so parameter is defined, but it is never used. Okay, so you are getting a full view of what all is deployed and what all is not used. Maybe if I'll pick something from here, right? uh it's been a while since I've written an ARM template. So do we have a concat here? Okay, so let's say let me pick this one. Okay, let me pick the old way of doing Nick. Okay, and let's say if I'm writing a variable out here and with the name SLA equal to this. Okay. Okay. So if you see this one, right? So again, you are going to get this is unused variable one. This is it. Okay. So yeah, so now you can see, right? You're using your old methodology of doing a concatenation over here, and which is not a correct format of concatenation or doing in Bicep. So the last option that you're seeing over here, right? It is saying that the string interpolation use string interpolation instead of concatenation. Okay, so when you're doing this, instead you should be using something like this. You should be using dollar just we have no suggestion out here. So you'll put admin user name 2, and then you can put name or whatever you want to concatenate into it, and just put it like this. This is not a way. This doesn't exist actually. I typed it wrong. So your linter has marked that clear, but still your admin username too, and SLA has never been used. So that's what you are going to get out of this. And also, let's say if you are deploying, if you are writing a hard-coded URL or something like that, right? Those all will be highlighted by the linter just to give you a view on. Okay. Okay. So linters are this, and we have a couple of linter rules that you can either look into on this particular. I have shared the link as well, and you can see. Okay, there are a couple of best practices as well around this, that how you should be writing that, how you should be passing the parameters, that all the net parameter, all there should be a good naming convention around that so that you can easily read and all. So that is totally that is totally up to you whenever you are doing the deployment. Okay, there are certain components that you need to define specifically, right? That best practices that comes into it. If you see this particular deployment, right, we have a we have a thing called secure over here. Okay, so anything that you are putting as a secure string, right, by being it your password, being it your connection strings, you just have to put this secure on top of it. So the what it does specifically, right, it is going to do it is not going to store that particular value either in your deployment history or in plain text anywhere within your deployment. So even if your pipeline has run around it, you just have to put secure on top of it, so that even if it is fetching it from somewhere, maybe from Key Vault or maybe from your workflows or directly, that will not happen. Okay, so this is what okay, this is what is going to be around best practices. And I will leave that patterns up to you. You can get into it and you can just look at it whenever you have time. I have dropped the link as well. So patterns is nothing. It's just a deployment pattern that we have to see. Uh, Now comes there are a couple of things. Okay, so pre-deployment. So before deploying anything, okay, what exactly you need to check a lot of things first. That what exactly is going to change, right? So you need to understand what exactly is going to change, and then only you will be deploying it. Okay, and you must have heard I was saying that I did a what if deployment instead of actual deployment out here. So I have a quick script here. Okay, this is basically okay, this is basically a script that creates a public IP. Okay, that's a very fairly simple one. Okay, now if I go to my azconf.rg, this is my RG that I'm looking at. Okay, so if I go to my azconf.rg right here, let me just. So I have nothing out there. Okay, let me just do a quick what if thing, that what exactly is going to happen if. So the way we deploy any of the script, right? So the way it is done, right? I'll just quickly give you the CLI one. So okay, so the deployment, if you're going with deployment commands, if you're deploying it with a CLI, the way it works is you need to go with the AZ deployment. You need to have the AZ module installed into it. You can go ahead with the AZ deployment. There is a deployment groups that gets created. You need to point it, either it is if it is pointed to a resource group. I talked about the scopes, right? If the scope is your resource group, you will be going with the resource group here. Otherwise, you will be going with the location directly. Okay, so this is how we do the deployment. Okay, so here the keyword is create. Okay, so what we are going to do, right, in the pre-deployment checks, instead of create, we will be putting what if. Okay, and the what if is going to do, it is going to give us a view that what exactly is going to change, or what exactly they are going. Is it a modification that is going to happen? Is it a new deployment that is going to happen? We'll see that. So let me just run this one. So see, this is asking me provide the name as I have a parameter divided over here, defined over here. That is that you need to take the public IP name. So let me say AzConf PIP. Now it is asking if it is going to be a dynamic or if it is going to be a static. So this is the one. Okay. So either I'll say true, I'll say false. So maybe let me say true. Okay, so this is going to be a dynamic one. So this is starting now, and now we will be seeing that what exactly is going to change. Okay, so it will give you a quick brief. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, right, please feel free to post that. Okay, so here, yes, it is actually. So all DevOps operations, you'll say maybe uh not for all the clouds, it is just for Azure. But yes, all the workflows that you're having at this point of time, all the pipelines that you're having, you can convert that into your Bicep templates. Okay, so since we are seeing, right, so as there is going to be color coding for all those changes that is going to happen over here, being it from either add or modify or deletion. So all the green ones here, you can see the plus green is create. So this is going to create. So let me just do one thing. Okay, let me just create this one. This is going to be a quick one. So just create. I need to upgrade my Bicep version as well. So I'm going to give it a name, azconf.azconf-pip. I'll say true. I can pass on these parameters directly to the command itself. So either you can do an inline command or you can do a runtime commands as well. Okay. So that's two options that you have. Meanwhile, while it is running, right? Since we have less time left, right? So that's why I'm encouraging, if you have any questions, please feel free to post that. I'll be taking that up. For the Azure operations, definitely it will be faster. Terraform, it is faster than what I've based on my experience as well. It is faster. So there, I'm sorry, I missed that part. So there is a question specifically asking that Bicep or Terraform, which one is faster. So basically, for Azure, all the Azure operations, you will be seeing Bicep faster than Terraform. That's what I have seen in my experience. Okay, so there are certain ways to deploy Bicep template actually. So I mentioned, right, we are going to talk about how we are going to deploy it. Okay, sorry for this one. Okay, so okay, so if I go directly to my browser, okay, we must be seeing something out here. So see, our PIP azconf.pip is already created. Okay, so now we need to check the what if statement for here. So let's say if I'm going to rerun the what if, okay, same script, I'm going to put the same name, azconf-pip. Okay, now this time instead of dynamic allocation, I'm saying it will be a static allocation. So I'm saying a false. Okay, let it run. While it is running, right? So let's see what all options we have in terms of deployment, right? Since we are talking about DevOps, we are talking about CLI. So we have three options to deploy that. Okay, the first is either you go with the commands to deploy this. So you have CLI commands, you have PowerShell commands, you have Cloud Shell commands. So you can either go directly on your Cloud Shell and deploy a Bicep template. You can go on PowerShell and you can deploy a particular template, or you can do it through Cloud Shell. This is one part. This is fairly easy. You just have to put your location, you have to put your template file, you have to pick the right one in terms of which what is your scope. So if your scope is resource group, you'll be picking the resource group one, and then you can deploy it. The challenging piece comes into when we are talking about a CI/CD. Okay, so that is either you can deploy it with your Azure DevOps, or you can deploy it with your GitHub workflows, okay, or GitHub Actions, what we could say. Okay, so let's just quickly look at the GitHub Actions once. Okay, so I'm just going to show you on the documentation, and then we'll jump into the actual implementation of it. Okay, so the way it overall works, right? We have to create a GitHub workflow file, which is going to be inside your .github/workflows, and you can give it any name that you want. And you have to do a couple of settings around it just for your GitHub to authenticate to your Azure portal directly. So the settings that is going to be, you have to create a particular service principal, and you have to pass the credential of that into your GitHub side, so that you can, whenever you are trying to make a deployment, you can directly like push your code directly to your Azure portal itself. So there is a quick command over here. You'll see in the same, if you have AZ module installed, right? This will give you this will just give you a quick I'll say service principal created, something you are going to get like this one. I have one created for this. So here you go. I have this created. Any which way I have deleted this one. So you can do anything with this one. So you are going to get something like this as an outcome of that particular command. So once you have this command, right? Once you have this outcome, it is basically a service principal ID and all those things that you are getting. And you have to this Teams window is giving me a lot of pain. Okay, so you have to put that in your GitHub secrets, and once your GitHub secrets are defined, right, you can put your Bicep file out there, and you can create a workflow. So what exactly that workflow is going to be is, when your workflow is going to pick in, you can give your workflow a name, what exactly is the platform that it is going to run into, and also how exactly it is going to log into Azure. So you can use the Azure login module within GitHub. So it is going, and you have to provide the credentials that we are getting. Don't get confused with this. I'll just show you quickly as well. And then the same way we deploy the Azure Arm with GitHub workflows, same way we are going to deploy it here as well. So we are going to use we are going to use the same template. We are going to use the same module as ARM deploy v1, and we are going to pass that, instead of passing a Azure ARM template, we are going to pass a Bicep template out here. Okay, and all the parameters on top of it. Okay, so if I go to directly to my GitHub account, okay, so I have created one repository. So the way it is defined, right? See, I have a Azure deploy .bicep git script, which is the same script that we have here. Okay. So we have done a lot of funny things over here. I'm not sure what all changed out there. Okay, so I have this script out here, which is going to create a virtual machine, which is going to create a UDR and all those things. In that as well, I have a module defined. If you see, so there is a module that is, sure, I can do that. So let me just quickly do that as well. This is a fairly simple module that you will be seeing, and I'm just putting the link here. There is a lot of failed workflows, right? So don't judge me on for that. Okay, I was trying a lot of funny things, and also so one quick tip around it: once you create a service principal, right, just make sure that your service principal has right access. So yesterday I was working with one service principal, and I was having tons and tons of failed workflows, and every time it was failing on could not connect to the Azure portal, and I was like, I'm copying the same code that came as an output of that particular command that we run. So it is like the same. I'm not even tampering the client ID or anything out of that. That how is it possible that I'm not able to log in? Okay, then I realized, okay, so I had a specific resource group that I was using for that particular purpose, and I deleted that resource group, and that service principal had access to that resource group only. So make sure you are giving your service principal access to the overall subscription while you're doing the tests, or maybe you can give it to a particular resource group, but make sure you do not delete it. Okay, so I'll go quickly into the settings over here. So you'll see I talked about once you run this command, uh, yeah, here. Once you run this command, you are going to get a service principal created, and that service principal, you need to come here, you need to go into secrets, you need to put the Azure credentials. In Azure credentials, you have to paste out everything that I had here. Say, sorry, not this one. It's the same way: client ID, client secret, subscription ID, everything. This is going to be the outcome of that particular command. Okay. Post that, once you are done with this one, okay, you have to put your either you can put your RG as a directly to your script, or maybe you can put your RG as a secret as well, and then you have to put your subscription ID as well so that you can point it to. And then you get into the actions. And the actions, let me click on new workflow. Okay, so once you click on new actions, you will be seeing something like that. Okay, so it is like having the Terraform workflow, all those workflows are there. There are some workflows that is predefined that you can look into, but we will be doing a set up a new workflow. We will be creating a new workflow here, which is more of a I already have one, so I'll not be creating a new one. So okay, let me show it here only. So okay, so the workflow that I am talking about, right? It is here. So bicep deploy.yml that I have, right? So I have a on push. So I have given it a name that is, so any push that I'm going to do through that particular repository, right? It is going to run my workflow and create that particular resources that we are doing. Okay, so it is having all those, it is having the parameters. So far I have hard coded admin password, so definitely that is going to be a challenge out there, because I don't want it to go through all the secrets and all those, right? So this is how you create the workflow. It's fairly simple, I believe 15-25 lines code that you need to write, and this is just going to be for once. And then every time, let's say, right, let me do a quick commit, test commit. So let me go to my GitHub. Okay, let's just wait for a second. So I did a commit, and you can see the actions has been uh, like triggered out here. So now what you'll see is build and deploy. You'll see the job is getting set up. You'll see the deployment is getting in progress. It will first connect to my Azure account, and then it will come back. Okay, so the login is happening. Then we are talking about, we have done a lot of funny stuff over there on our script in terms of understanding, right? So maybe we'll see some red lines over here. I believe I have 1 minute left. So that is how we did do the deployment. Similarly, we have it is fairly simple process to do it with our normally with Azure pipelines as well. The same process goes over here as well. You'll create just the YAML file gets converted into your inline script. So in the YAML script, you will be providing the AZ group. It's basically the AZ scripts that you are going to use, that you are going getting from here, right? From your deployment commands, you will be putting that, and you will be able to deploy that. So that is fairly simple thing. You just need to follow this particular document, and you will be able to do that. It is fairly elaborative out here. Okay. Any questions so far? Anything before we wrap up? basically I created a quick. Okay. Okay, so I believe there is no questions. I am just dropping a quick links out here, and one last link, and I'll talk about it for a second, and then I'll be closing the session. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in meanwhile. So the last one that we are looking at, right, it is a resource references we are talking about. Okay. So as I was saying, right, every time IntelliSense is not going to give you a full picture. Okay. So let's say if you are going to deploy anything that you do not have a script that you find on internet, or maybe you need to create an app configuration, you need to create an AVS, right? Maybe Azure VMware services. Okay. So this is the best uh, portal that you can get into. You can get into this Azure you can get into this. You can find whatever. Let's say I want to deploy AVS. You'll see AVS out here. You'll see how you are going to deploy it, all the versions that is available, what all is in preview, and then you will be able to deploy the private clouds. Maybe private clouds, you'll see the Bicep template out here, what all properties it takes and all those things, and you can plug it in your script, and you can modify it accordingly what you want, the way you want. It is available for everything, either being from Sentinel, creating any alert rules, blueprints, digital twins, everything you'll see in this particular in this particular page. So you if you are going to develop Bicep templates, please do bookmark this one, because this is going to be your best reference material. So okay, so key takeaways from this. You are going to, it is easier to deploy. You can start your journey today. Is not going anywhere, and Bicep is integrated with everything that you have at this point of time. Okay, and here are my details. If you have anything related to it, if you have any issues, or if you want to reach out to me, if you want to connect with me around anything, just let me know. You can ping me at follow Tushar, or you can add me on LinkedIn. Everywhere I'm available as follow Tushar. So you can just capture uh, this, and you can catch me there. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Thank you so much for your time.